Canada?
No, I was born in Duncan, British Columbia, and grew up in South London. When I should be talking the way I speak Punjabi, but I don't know how to support. I was born in Duncan, grew up in Lake Cowichan, British Columbia. Born in February 1955, February 18th to be precise. And the world was a different place then, of course, than it is now. And Lake Cowichan, I'm going to just talk a bit. I often do these interviews, and I find that often I can cover up a lot of your questions. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I want that.
Yeah. But it was a small community in those days. Many of the pioneers, Indo-Canadian pioneers, were living in the Cowichan Valley at the time. I guess it was around a little after the turn of the century, around 1920s, when the Indo-Canadian community started to come to Victoria. And in those days, the prevailing attitude of the white people was that, let's send them, out of sight, out of mind. So Lake Cowichan was a place that was sort of seemed to be well away from Victoria. It was, about 45 miles away from Victoria, and in the interior of the island. And they needed people to do heavy labor work in terms of the sawmill operations in the province. And so a lot of our community was located there. And in fact, really up until sort of the wave of immigration that hit in the 1970s, it's very hard to go anywhere in British Columbia and not have met somebody who had passed through Lake Cowichan or through the Cowichan Valley and experienced it in Canada. Most of the people that were living there, in fact all the people living there at the time, were involved in the sawmill industry. And my grandfather had come here in the 1920s, and my father, shortly after that, in 1930, my father-in-law, same time, around 1930. And they were working at the old sawmill at Missachi Lake at what we call Hillcrest. There used to be Hillcrest Lumber Company there at Missachi Lake. And my recollections as a child are that I can remember going, in fact, I used to look forward every weekend to going to the Goodwater. That used to sit right next, I don't know if you were, when were you living here?
1975.
It's well before your time, but I can remember as a child looking forward to going to the Goodwater and go at Hillcrest. We used to call it the Hillcrest Goodwater. And it used to sit right next to the burners at the Goodwater at Missachi Lake. At the sawmill at Missachi Lake. And it was just a wonderful place to go as a kid, because as Goodwaters are very social settings, and you could go around, you could talk to all of the families, run around and meet the kids that you hadn't seen all week long. And it was a real tremendous sense of community, because everybody used to get together on Saturday and Sunday there. And the Goodwater sat, like you said, on one side was the beehive burner, and it's always amazed me that this wooden Goodwater never burnt down. And then it was linked as you went out by wooden sidewalks that went to the cookhouse, where you sort of went after Goodwater and for your langar, and also it was connected to all of the bunkhouses where the men used to stay. And I can remember, in the afternoons after church, a lot of the men would have the langar and they'd go to the bunkhouses, and his kids used to go running to the bunkhouses and play, because there was old pot-belly stoves and one or two beds in there, and the men would sit there and play cards. And it seemed in those days that under every pillow there was a bottle of scotch. and your job as a kid was, when they yelled at you to go pick up another bottle of Johnny Walker, you'd lift up a pillow and there it was. It was a hard life, though. People worked very, very hard. And I think, the men was highly physical work. I remember my father, when he left the green chain, used to bundle up pieces of wood. And as did my father-in-law. And I think what kept the community together was the fact that the Gurdwara was there. And I think the way it survived, remarkable physical labor. I mean, you talk to people who worked there. I remember as a kid, everything was physical. We used to get up in the morning, and our first chore was to get out of bed. It was cold, it'd be raining usually on the island, and you'd have to go to there was a shed outside the house where you'd have to go get sawdust, and look for dry sawdust and put it in the burner and get the house warm in the morning. So it was very physical. People used to have their own gardens and grow their own chickens and so on. And I think what kept the community together was the fact that these Gurdwaras, both at Paldi and in Hillcrest, were there. And there was an enormous sense of pride in the culture, in the religion. And I think, if I look back at my life, I picked up a lot of my own sense of values from our religion, from those experiences as a child. And I think, the community was so strong in those days. You see, I didn't, when I went to school, when I went to kindergarten in Lake Cowichan, I couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak a word of English, as same as my sister. I remember, for example, my sister was in kindergarten having to go down there, because by that time I was in grade 4, I believe, and help her through her first couple of days because she was crying and all upset at school. The community was very strong because we were very, very together. It was a very small community. Everybody knew everybody, and it was very isolated, and very seldom did you leave Lake Cowichan. It was a big trip to go to Duncan, and twice a year you used to go to Victoria, Duncan to get your groceries. In Victoria you went to Christmas to get your Christmas presents because it had an Eaton store, and everybody wanted to come to Eaton's downtown as a kid to get your gifts. And the other reason why you would come to Victoria was because of Vasaki. And Vasaki in those days used to be a gathering for the community in Victoria. And you used to walk around with your parents feeling very proud of who you were, very proud of your culture, because everybody would meet one another with a hug and a smile, because people from all over British Columbia would come to Vasaki in Victoria. It was a big gathering. And so because people had gone a year without seeing each other, there was a lot of piad, as they'd say, a lot of affection in the community. And I think, my affinity for the community comes from those days, because I saw what it was like and how much piad there really was within the community. So we used to only come to Victoria twice a year, and often, it's funny, things you remember as a kid, often we'd come in a pickup truck that was loaded, with men and women and children. And when you were trying to get up to Malahat, you know where I mean by where the Malahat Highway is, here on Vancouver Island, after you leave Duncan and go to Mill Bay, you start going up the steep hill. And the truck could never make it with all the people on it. And so what would happen is all the men would be taken to the top. The women and the children left off at Bamberton Park. And then they'd come down, pick up the women, then the truck would make it up. And every time I go to Bamberton Park, even today, I remember that. Having parotes there with my mum, well, the truck went up and dropped everybody off, and you'd have your lunch, and then they'd come pick you up, and they'd take you to the top. And I remember, going to Victoria for Zasaki, apart from the sports, weightlifting, the kabaddi, and field hockey, soccer. The other thing that was stuck out of my mind, and I guess this goes again to the sense of community, was you never stayed in a hotel. The people slept on floors and on someone's Chesterfield, and 3 kids, 4 kids for every bed, and it was a very, very strong sense of who we were came out in those days. When I look back at the decision that I made in introducing Punjabi into the schools in British Columbia, it's rooted in that experience. Because I realized, looking back on my life, the value of protecting the culture. Because if you lose your language, you lose all of your traditions and your values and their significance. And I would not want my kids to one day look in a mirror and wonder who they were and where they came from. Even to this day, I speak to my kids as hard as it is in Punjabi at home. And, it's very important that you don't forget where you came from. So that's what it was like when we, I'm sort of going back and forth over decades of time there, but I just want to explain because my memories as a child are very much a part of the celebration of what we were as Punjabi Sikhs. The other event that I always remember as a child, and I was talking to somebody about over the weekend because we were on a helicopter and I made them fly over it. There used to be a Jod Mela every year in Paldi. And you go there today and it's so sad to see the town essentially deserted. And because for those of us who grew up there, you still hear the voices. You know what it was like when the cookhouse was full and the Gurdwara was packed and hot because it was usually in the summer, and what it was like with all the games going on outside. And again, that sense of brotherly love is the team from Williams Lake played volleyball as a team against Lake Cowichan. But it was, but we weren't from Lake Cowichan, we weren't from Williams Lake. We were Sikhs gathering and reinforcing ourselves with a sense of tradition and values. I've always, certainly before I leave politics, and I'll get this done, because usually when I make up my mind I want to do something, I'll get it done. I want something to commemorate what used to be Paldi. Because more so than the Gurdwara at Masachi Lake, the Hillcrest Gurdwara, Paldi was really the focal point in the Cowichan Valley. We just tended to go more to the Hillcrest Gurdwara. But I think most of the kids that grew up in that era remember the Paldi Gurdwara with as much affection as I remember the Hillcrest one. And it was very much a symbol of our community in those days and where we gathered. It was also a reflection of the community's financial strength, because the Mayo family, were the people that who sort of gave strength to Paldi from an economic point of view. They hired a lot of the men that came. They had the town, of course, named after their village in India, because the word Mayo got mixed up with Mayo Yukon, so a lot of the Mayo from India would end up in Yukon and sent back down. And so there's a lot of stories about Paldi and a lot of famous names. Opal, as in Wally Opal. I remember Wally, the judge, delivering milk to our house. When we were kids. Doman, Herb Doman, and the contributions he made to Paldi. We talk it now. He still talks fondly of Paldi, and of course Mayo. So a lot of the people who succeeded in our community as the generations went on came from Paldi. And so I think government has to certainly be my objective for our late politics to ensure that we have some commemorative there to commemorate what the community meant. What that town meant to our community. So I look back at my experiences as a child, and they're very much a part of our community. Although, to answer your question, I wasn't born in India. I was born here. But in some ways, you never know the difference. And I think that's a reflection of what the community was like. My wife, who I married 13 years ago, her family lived at 3 Mile House, which is 3 miles outside of Lake Cowichan. Well, there were a bunch of houses, so we used to call it 3 Mile House. And so we come from the same community, and I think we've taken the same values.
So you talked about Gurdwara, Bankhal culture, and also sports. What else was happening in the community of that level? What kind of organization was going?
Well, it's funny. Well, there's the usual weddings and that kind of thing. One other social event I always look forward to as a kid, and people laugh at this one, I think. Well, once, maybe a month, maybe every 3 weeks, this man would show up in Lake Cowichan, and he would rent out the movie theater. And he'd bring the latest black and white movies from India that he could get his hands on.
Really?
And the whole, at the Lake Theater in Lake Cowichan. And the whole community, I don't know how many hundreds of us would be there.
Yeah.
But we'd go to watch Hindi or Punjabi films. I remember the black and white films, and everybody would go. And of course, no more different than concerts today, There'd be a few people who had a little bit too much to drink. There might be the odd fight, but mostly it was a lot of fun, people meeting people. And so, as a child, you're introduced to that side of our experience. And I remember the first time I went to India, I was 4. Maybe that must have been the second time. I was 12, and that was in 1967, 68. And we're going to India, and I remember lining up with my cousin to go see a movie in India, and watching the lineups outside and realizing what a popular form of entertainment and why it was. It was the only form of entertainment. And I remember making that connection back to the Lake Theatre, and then it became apparent to me why it was that everybody used to go to the Lake Theatre. It was the only form of entertainment that you used to have. That and the old play records, the 78, they used to run at 78 speed. You used to get those and listen to Punjabi or Hindi music all the time. And I remember that really vividly. So, it was for lack of a better word, a cross-cultural type of upbringing. All my fond moments are part of the Punjabi experience. But that's not to say that we were isolated. I mean, like every other kid growing up in Canada, I did things that I still love to do with my kids today. I played baseball. I was in Little League starting in grade 2 in Lake Alton, much like I take my kids to Little League now. I played road hockey just like everybody else and pretended I was the greatest hockey player that was there. Just as I watched my son and my daughter to some degree play hockey now. I followed sports. I was in Boy Scouts. I even once went to Sunday school. So you were growing up simultaneously these two cultures in a very small community. Lake Alton, a population of 2,000 people, and you would spend your summers camping and fishing and that kind of stuff. And so the beauty of that experience is you were able to extract the best of both worlds and make them a part of your personality. And Lake Alton was very much small town Canada in the non-Indian sense, but very much like a village in India in the Indian sense. And so you had this wonderful blend of cultures, and you're raised in them. And we stayed there from 1955 right through to 1965.
And what were the other communities? Were there any other communities?
In Paulney there were a lot of Japanese and Chinese and some Swedes. And I remember the Chinese because they used to work in the cookhouse. After we had langar, they would do a lot of the cleaning and so on. And every once in a while, still to this day, I run across, they're all old now, but I run across the odd Chinese person who shows up at the Gurdwara in Victoria who still speaks Punjabi. And because, they learned how to speak Punjabi in those days. Some of them did. It's not too many of them left now. Japanese were there, and the Swedes. But at the same time, I look back at it, the politics was always there too. I mean, I can remember, be it in the bunkhouses or at home or at Saki, there was always talk about the IWA, always talk about the CCF. And I think as far back as I can remember, there was never any doubt about which political party had been supportive of our community. And over again, you heard these stories. When they paid us 10 cents an hour less to work in the sawmill, it was the union and the CCF NDP that fought that. When it came to the right to vote, it was the CCF and the NDP that said that had to happen. It was the Liberals and the Conservatives that opposed it. And the value of trade unions and the value of a political party that was socially conscious. And our people, our culture is political, and people care passionately about their politics. And we have this picture, which my mom would never part with, but where Tommy Douglas is at our house in Lake Cowichan. And he's there with my father and a number of other Indo-Canadian gentlemen. It's an old black and white picture, and I'm sitting on Tommy Douglas's lap. And he has the most uncomfortable look on his face. And every time I look at that picture, I think I must have peed on him or something, because he looks very uncomfortable. But but that shows you the fact that at Lake Cowichan today, overwhelmingly 80-85% votes NDP, and there's deep political roots, as is our community. People argue about it, but from a political point of view, provincially we enjoy enormous support, and I think enormous because of that history, and because Harry, Jill, and myself have made it a point not to allow people to forget that history, and plus we have made it a point to show our respect to the community by introducing programs like Punjabi in the schools, which I think serves as a reminder of really who's on whose side. Talk is cheap. Action is very hard. And, and I'm quite happy about it. If I look back at my experience as a politician, certainly the thing that gives me the greatest satisfaction as a Punjabi Sikh is that decision to introduce Punjabi in the schools. It's probably the most emotional. Funny, the only Indo-Canadian press that came out that day, because they didn't appreciate the significance of the event, was Moe Sahota from the Link. You should talk to her, because I had tears in my eyes when I made that announcement. And yet, very few people were there, because they didn't appreciate what we were about to do as a government.
So what were the other issues? Trade union movement and where to go. What were the other issues at that time that people discussed? Political issues.
Well, I can't remember. It's very early in my age. I can't really remember much more than that. I remember you couldn't own land in Vancouver, in certain parts of Vancouver, because, as I said to you, we lived in Vancouver, in Lake Isle from 1955 to 1965, and then in the summer of '65, my dad told me to go write an exam. Now, you did what your father told you to do. Some days I wish it was still like that. And I went and wrote this exam, and the next thing I knew, we were moving to Vancouver. Because, my father was working up in the interior that time, he had a furniture store. But my mother and my sister moved because, unbeknownst to me, I had written that exam so well that I secured a scholarship to go to private school. It was a big change in one's life to go from a small community like Lake Isle, a big city like Vancouver, with your mom who can't speak English, your sister who's too small to look after herself, your father's not there, so I had to do everything. We finally had a place to live in an apartment near Granville and 13th, and I had to figure out the bus routes and how to get to my school at Dunbar and 29th, and look after groceries and all that kind of stuff. So my mom got familiar with the setup there. But I remember, to answer your question, I remember we went to look for a house sometime in the fall of 1965, and we went up to the British properties, and houses were for sale. We went to look at it. I remember sort of getting the impression that we really shouldn't be there. And my father wanted to put a bid in, an offer for it, did. The realtor told him to come back. We came back a few hours later, and lo and behold, there was no sign outside that house. I looked at it, and we were thinking, well, what happened here? There was a sign up. Somebody went the wrong street and looked around for a while. And then, my dad told me the story. He really couldn't have gone there, but he was going to try anyway. And that's something I forgot, And but it was a life of firsts. The first I found myself in 1965 being the first Indo-Canadian person of Indian heritage ever to go to private school. Right? I went to a private school, then not knowing how to deal with me. A, I was from Lake House, a small town. B, I wasn't Anglican. School was Anglican. The first day I went to school, you had to go to church. I didn't know what a hymn was, why they had these things where you usually kneel down, why it was you couldn't talk in church. I was used to a good life, where you could talk to everybody. And I remember teachers, clearly discounting my skills. And fair enough. And I remember that of all the awards from school I've ever kept, the only one I've ever kept was that in that first semester, from September to December, I won the award for effort, which is sort of the brightest, most capable student. And I always kept that. Still sits on my mom's mantle. And I've won a lot of things in my life, but I always kept that because I proved, and this is sort of the other lesson you learn in life. If you're, in those days, and I think still true, if you're a person of our background, you have to prove to everybody that you're one step better. I learned that lesson very early on in life. Stayed with me still with me today. I'm not writing my obituary here, I'm telling you a story.
Yeah. And could you tell me about your views school years at Lake Country? Elementary school?
Well, they were, you know, I think they were sort of typical Canadian type of school, small school. You know, so you knew everybody you went to school with. You know, this is grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know, all my friends, my best friends were Indo-Canadians. But, you know, we played baseball together, hockey together, skated together, played football together, cheered for the BC Lions together. You know, it was that kind of an existence, as very Canadian existence, and very Indian homes. You know, I have no idea how I did in school. I suspect I did reasonably well. And my mother tells me I did well. You know, but there wasn't anything untoward in that experience. 1 year my dad decided to move to Winnipeg, and we moved there, and all it took was one winter for us to move back. You know, I remember snow taller than me. But it was a great experience. You know, you grew up in a very small town where everybody knew everybody. You spent summers down at the lake swimming, and in that sense it still is today. It's a very typical you know, Canadian town. I remember 2,000 people live there. And I think there's more than 2,000 people there now. And 2 years ago, when I was Minister of Environment, they had Lake Country's 50th anniversary. So I went. You know, I took my kids, put them in the van, and told them, I said, look, you know, you guys, I want to take you to Lake Country. I want to show you where your dad grew up, you know. And I went there, and I told my staff before the day I left, I said, look, do we as the government own any land around the lake? He said, oh, you got a lot of fun down the lake. Oh yeah, we own some crown land down the lake, said my bureaucrats. I said, good. I said, I'm going to Lake Country tomorrow morning and announce I'm going to give the city as a park. And I showed up there, and now here's a town that had 2,000 people living in it when I was there, and still the same amount of people there now. There must have been 6,000 people at the pancake breakfast, you know, and it shows you what kind of affinity people had to that town. And people, older people coming up saying, oh, I knew your father, I know your father-in-law, I knew your mother, I know you knew your mother-in-law, oh, you got married to so-and-so. You know, they remember that, oh, I was your coach. Oh, I don't remember my coach. Oh, I was your coach when you did this. And it was just a true, you know, there's a real sense of community in that town. And I was proud. I stood up and said, look, you guys, I'm here today. I'm here to tell you that we're going to give you a park, you know, announce the park. It was sort of, you know, the sun coming back to the city. It's like going back to your friend in India. And then I took the kids up the road 3 miles past the Casa de Hocas. And it's tragic, you know. They're just the barbed wire fence. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know that there was a mill there, you know, one day. And if you didn't know, nobody would be able to tell you there was a good water there. There was maybe 3 or 4 bunkhouses that were there for a church group, you know. So I recognize the old bunkhouses. And the lake was there, and you know, the campground, there was a campground built where the good water was, and down to the lake, very scenic spot. And so I'm glad you're here, because I don't think that that in our community, for some reason, we record history as we should. And maybe we're too young here in Canada to record it. And maybe it's only now we're beginning to think about the value of recording it. But I remember standing there on that sunny day with my kids, you know, telling them what it was like, how much life there was on that land. You know, I took them camping there last year. I always take them back. It's very important in my mind that you don't forget where you came from in terms of roots. And it's too bad that there's nothing that reminds you of what was once there, other than just the memories in your skull.
And what kind of dreams do you have at that time?
As a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, couldn't be the best hockey player that there was, you know. I was going to go play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you know. And if that didn't work, I was going to go pitch for the New York Yankees, you know. It was, you know, you're a kid, you know, sports is your life. You know, I didn't think I was going to be a politician or a lawyer. I was going to be a goal-scoring forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs or a pitcher for the New York Yankees. And we played a lot of sports, still play a lot of sports, you know, and I love sports. And that was sort of, you know, the dream. I think, you know, the other thing is, when I left in grade 5, a lot of my friends had a different dream than I did. And in a funny sort of way, it was a good thing that I left when I left, I think. Because I remember when I was in grade 10, one day, I don't know why I did this, but I hitchhiked back to Lake Algin. You know, I caught the ferry to Victoria, I hitchhiked back. And it was raining, and I was wet and drenched, but I wanted to see some of my old friends, so I hitchhiked back. Went over and stayed at my uncle's place there. I went and visited all my friends. Well, they had a dream too. Most of them wanted to work in the mill. Most of them realized when you got to grade 10 or 16, you didn't have to go to school, and you could work. And, you know, I never had that dream. I moved to Lake Algin, I moved out of Lake Algin, went to Vancouver, and, you know, and university was where I wanted to be. And I'm not trying to sound elitist, but I'm trying to sort of make the point that it always came back home in terms of politics. And I saw these guys, and they were, they were young and 16, 17, and they were working, fishing and forestry. Came back to see them 2 years later. In the early 80s were a very tough time in Lake Algin. Town was almost a ghost town because the logging industry was basically shut down. They were overlogged. And I saw that these guys had a wife and kids very early in life, a boat and a car, because wow, they were making good money, union wages. And then they were out of work. And they had no skills. And you know, like, I guess I consider myself lucky because I avoided that sort of dream, as you put it. But again, sort of, you never forget where you came from. When I became environment minister, I would often talk about the need to sustain a forest so that companies could never log and leave, as they did where I grew up.
So why was it that you decided to go and study further instead of working in the farmers? Was there anything?
It's very simple. My parents. You know, like I said earlier on, you didn't question what they told you, you just did it. And it was very clear to me, you know, I was fortunate to be getting the education that I was, and the expectation was that I would go on to university. And I did. And I ended up getting a degree in social work while I was there, and meeting many of the people that I work with today as a consequence of that. But that's, you know, I think my parents instilled in me the importance of securing a proper education, just like my wife and I instill that in our children today. It's your passport to success. And again, you know, you don't forget these things.
So when you were growing up, were you still part in any kind of maybe events of community politics or some university?
Yeah, well, no, in university, but before that, no. I mean, while I was at high school, you know, I wasn't on student council, I didn't get involved in politics. I was interested in, when I was in grade 8, 1968, 69, I watched the world unfold. I remember a great story, right? I was doing very well at school. And at the beginning of grade 8, I started hanging around with a bunch of guys, and school didn't seem to be that important. So in that first semester, September to December, my marks crashed. You know, I was usually somewhere, I was always scoring somewhere in the mid-80s, right? And they crashed to like the mid-60s. I came home one day with my report card, showed it to my father. The next day, the cable vision was disconnected. There was no stereo in the house. My uncle picked me up, took me to school, dropped me off, picked me up after school, took me back home. I had to do take extra courses on the weekends in math and in English, and I was told I could read only Maclean's magazine or Time, and that's what I could do in my spare time. I wasn't allowed to play baseball, hockey, none of that stuff. Bang.
Everything was gone.
Everything was gone, right? And so I started to look at the world, and I started to read about Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. And I started, and then, of course my marks went back up. It was just one of those aberrations in life, And I started to watch that stuff on TV. And, it reminded me a little bit of what I heard when I was a kid, about the equality of people, about justice. The Vietnam War was going on, about peace. And these things, at a very impressionable age at that time, grade 8, and at a time when, many of us that age sort of tend to want to watch TV, and I started to sort of pay attention to what was going on in the world. Now, look, I never said much about it. I just sort of absorbed it, and I started to do school projects on people like Gandhi, when other kids were sort of more interested in Robert Redford, I started to read about. I started to read about Martin Luther King, rather than Yogi Berra, who's a catcher for the New York Yankees. I started to pay attention to what's going on in the world. And I think I look back on now, they were obviously left of center, and that caught my eye, but didn't do much other than just maybe plant some seeds in my mind. So I wasn't involved in community politics at all. The only thing I did that was a community, I remember in 66, maybe 67, something like that. Maybe got the year wrong. But whatever year the Ross Street Temple opened. 72, it must have been 72 then. Yeah, I was younger than that. I can't remember what year it was, right? But I remember going there and speaking, being one of the young people up there to give a speech, but other than that, I didn't really get involved in community. I got involved in community affairs and in politics when I got to university.
Did you experience any kind of racism in school?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I moved to Vancouver and I realized we couldn't live in the British province. I know the teachers tested me in my first year there, and I knew one of them, a guy from Australia, clearly looking back on it now, was racist. He'd pick on me in class more than pick on anybody else. But, very simple. You don't let any of that stuff get to you. You just prove to them that you're smarter and better than they think you are. And in the long run, you succeed. I've never walked through my life with a chip on my shoulder, and I get a racist mail today. I just stuck my nose in the taxi just a couple weeks ago. You should see the mail I got. It was all racist, right? Racism is a fact of life. It's an ugly fact of life. It's not something I don't accept. I don't particularly tolerate. I don't like it. But how you deal with it, I think, is the measure of the man. And I try to deal with it in a way. Well, look, watch me. You think I'm inferior? Watch me. Right? And I think the one thing that our culture teaches us is a sense of self-confidence about who we are as people. And the fact that we never take a back seat to anybody. We believe in justice. These are important attributes of our religion, particularly justice and the equality of people. So, I always find I go back to those values when someone tests me. And then out of those values, I find a solution. I don't call myself a religious man. I don't think I'm particularly religious. I don't know. But I believe in the values that come from our teachings, very much so. I think there's a little bit of my mother's experience, because my father could care less. So, no, I wouldn't say there's too much racism. If there was, there's nothing that I got too worried about. Look, I was the only one around. I knew what I had to prove. I remember the first time, racism works in different ways. I remember one time when one of my first memories of going to St. George's School in Vancouver, and the first time all of us kids were together in grade 5, we had to pick a soccer team, And they picked 2 boys from grade 4 who'd been there, who sort of knew the guys who'd been there beforehand. And so they knew who to pick. And so when it came to picking the rest of us, because we hadn't been there were still about 10 or 12 of us there. And right away, I remember very, very, very vividly the captain of the team saying, well, we'll take that guy over there, pointing at me, because he's colored, he's probably good. Right? And they figure I can run better than or play soccer better than anybody else. Well, you know, these things happen in life, but there's nothing that I got too worked up about. You know.
You mentioned Gandhi. So what kind of things really influenced you from his writing or writing?
Well, really, you know, violence, dealing with violence, and leadership. You know, the attributes of leadership and thoughtfulness. Those are the kinds of things that I think that stick out in my mind.
So when was the first time you got interested in politics?
Well, what happened was that in 1974, I'll tell you two stories in one. How's that?
Yeah,
it's never one story, right? But you'll see why I tell you the second story in a minute. In 1974, I went to see a student ombudsman. The guy was never there, you know, and I needed some help with the student loan because I was having some trouble with my student loan. Never there. So, you know, I used to complain about that. You know, we used to sit around, a lot of it, Punjabi guys sit around in the library and joke around and do those things in college that you're supposed to be doing anyways, right? And I complained about it. And I played a lot of sports, and a lot of the guys I played sports with at UBC. And I complained to them, I said, I want to see this guy, he's never there, I want to get, he's never there, I want to get, he's never there. Finally someone said, well, why don't you just run for his job, right? Well, okay, why not? Like, well, what's wrong with that? Let's give it a try, right? And I remember, I'll tell you more than one story now. And I remember my first speech, we did this little poster, I should show you the really ugly poster. And I remember giving my first speech on why I should be honest. It was kind of a gathering of all the students in the student union building at UBC. And I remember my knees shaking. It's the only time in my life I could actually say my knees shook when I spoke, right? And they were shaking. I gave my speech, I explained it. I went to all the first and second year class because they're the biggest ones. Explained that. Went to every person who was of Indian origin at the university and made sure they voted for me. That's how I won, because they all knew me, so they all came out and voted for me, right? One of our guys just voted for him, right? So we ended up winning. But one day, this is the other story I was going to tell you, I'm walking around putting up my posters asking people to vote for me. And basically, you know, I knew people in the arts side of the buildings, you know, and knew a lot of people there. I didn't know anybody in the commerce side of the world, so I figured, okay, I better go to the commerce building and put on my poster. Maybe some students would read it, they vote for me, right? I'm walking to the commerce building, and I'm putting up this poster, and as I would like to say, a funny-looking guy walks up to me, an up-and-up boy, walks up to me and says, oh, you're Moe Sahota. He says, yeah. He says, oh, I saw your posters all over the place. He says, you know, I really think people from our community should get involved in politics here at the campus. I didn't know this guy. And he says, you know, I would like to help you. You know, so can I help you? I'll put up your posters for you. I'll talk to people in my commerce. I'm in the commerce faculty. I'll ask people in the faculty to vote for it, because I think it's just great someone from the community is running. And that's when I first met the best man at my wedding and my best friend today, her daughter-in-law. Right? And that's the beginning of a long relationship. Now, of course, he's a liberal. I'm a New Democrat. We often talk about that, still do. But, you know, it's funny how politics and friendship intermingle. So then I got elected by a good margin, and I got elected largely because the Indo-Canadian students there voted on bloc. And but I wasn't associated with any political party. And then, but I got involved in issues like student loans, student employment, and that kind of stuff. And I got, in 1975, I was elected as the Vice President of Student Society responsible for external affairs, which meant relations with government. So, in 1975, there was a provincial election, the NDP just lost. And there were issues that were important to me, like student housing, tuition fees, the student loans and grants, student employment, that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, you know, government isn't doing enough. In fact, I still believe in those days tuition fees for post-secondary education should be free. But anyway, the government's not doing enough on these issues of housing and loans and employment. And the new government had come in and they made some further cuts to post-secondary education around student loans. And you have to actually get out bigger loans now to get access to university. And I thought, well, the government just doesn't understand the students being a little naive. And I thought, if I just went and met with the Minister of Education, Advanced Education, I explained to him the predicament students are in, I'm sure he'd realize the value in making education a little bit more accessible for people. And, I reflected, well, I won't say that. So anyway, so I came, and I thought, this is no problem. It's very easy to do this. Because after all, I know the son of the father of the Minister of Advanced Education at the time was Pat McGeer. And Rick McGeer had gone to the same posh private school that I'd been to in Vancouver. So I thought, okay, well, so you can see I always like to talk language, but you tell me once in a while, so I keep lots of copy to play with. So I put on my suit, and I came here to see Pat McGeer. And what a jerk. The guy could care less about the position that I was taking, and had no empathy for these concerns and the realities of student life. And I wasn't impressed. So I went back to the university, made a statement in the university newspaper, and so on and so forth. And about a week later, in an event that he forgets, but it was memorable and unforgetting in my mind, there's a knock on my door, and in walks Dave Barrett with Dennis Pope, who was the education critic at the time. So, well, we understand you were over to Victoria to see Mr. McGeer. I was saying he didn't get a good reception. He says to me, he says, tell me what the position you were taking was. And tell me anything you know about student loans. And I'll never forget, he had a piece of paper like this, a pad, like this one, except it was yellow. And he asked me for a pencil. And him and Dennis sat there and wrote down everything I said. Went back to the legislature a few days later, made a speech and sent me a copy of it based on what I had said. Now look, I had this bias towards the NDP because of my childhood. But, I'd also been in a private school, so I was starting to see the world from another perspective. And Barrett got me to join the NDP by that act of sort of showing some respect to me. Usually I look up to these guys. Here's Dave Barrett, Premier of the province a few months earlier, walking into my office and talking to me at DPC. And that also started the beginning of another lifelong friendship. And Dave lives in Esquimalt, my community. I've been his MLA. He's been my MP. His son, and all the years, the moment I became a cabinet minister, was my assistant. In fact, even before I got in the cabinet, was his assistant. So then that started a relationship with the NDP. I was then elected in 1976 as always with large majorities and always with good support from the Indo-Canadian students to the University Board of Governors with Sven Robinson. And that developed another relationship. And Sven left and ran federally. In 75, he ran federally. So he left when I got on the board and replaced him. But I helped him in his 1975 election campaign. Now, in 1975, there was a simultaneous elections. The provincial and federal elections were being held how many years ago? 79, excuse me. 76, I got elected to the university board. 79, there were simultaneous elections. By this time, I developed a relationship with Sven. I'll get back to Dave and the others in a few minutes, just telling about the story, which leads to yet another story, but you'll see how this all fits. So anyways, 79, elections were simultaneous. The NDP had a chance of winning the Little Mountain seat. Grace McCarthy was the sitting MLA there. It was a two-member seat. And it was Grace McCarthy and Evan Wolfe, his son, actually, John, had been my classmate as well at St. George's. And Grace's son, Kevin, was also my classmate. And I went to work for the NDP candidates in Little Mountain. And those two candidates were a chap called Jerry Scott and another guy, an alderman by the name of Mike Harcourt. So I worked for Mike in the 79 provincial election. Just lost McCarthy, just by a whisker. And we wrapped up that, and so I developed a friendship with Mike, because we got to know each other a little bit during that campaign. And then I went over to work in Burnaby with Sven Robinson, and his writing includes Simon Fraser. And so I worked there, and I got to know ever so briefly a young kid from Simon Fraser who was involved in Simon Fraser student politics, as I was involved in UBC in those days, called Glenn Clark, right? So all of a sudden these friendships started to develop around 1979. And we were all involved in these issues. But in 1977, I had graduated with a degree in social work from the University of British Columbia. And I had been the ombudsman, I had been the vice president of external affairs, I had been the board of governors, and then I left campus life and went to work in Montreal for a while as a social worker, only to come back in 79 and work on the election campaign. Now, why did I work on this election campaign? Well, in part was because of Barrett constantly coming back to the campus in those years where I was the vice president of external affairs, when I was on the board of governors, and always encouraging me to become involved in the NDP. I never joined. But in 78, when I left and went to Montreal, I missed the political life. You know, I had been doing stuff at campus and went back to work in social work, awfully boring, plus a little awkward to be working in Montreal. So I came back, got a job in White Rock, and joined the Young NDP in 79. Worked on this campaign, joined the Young NDP at Barrett's insistence in 79, even though the NDP lost the election. And I felt terrible the NDP lost the election in 1979. I didn't think I'd done enough to help them. And I was starting to develop these friendships. So I became president of the Young New Democrats in 1979, the youth wing of the NDP. And because I'd missed politics, I'd been out of it for a year at the campus level. This election happened, we had lost, and I felt I should do some more. As a result of that, I was automatically on the provincial council for the NDP, which is sort of the governing body of the NDP, because the young New Democrat president always has a seat on the council. And the young provincial council representative from Vancouver East was Glenn. Right? And so we started off, because of age, because of friendship, because we thought alike, we started to sort of become very active in the NDP. And in 1979, I decided that I would drop out of being a social worker. I got tired of sitting back in a courtroom watching the young people that I had to deal with, put end up in jail and so on. So I decided to go to law school. So I moved back here to Victoria in 79. And by this time, the Riding Association was happy to have, the Esquimalt Riding Association was very happy to have the president of the Young New Democrats living in their constituency. So they invited me onto their executive. And so I had this world in Vancouver, I down to Lake Glen and Sven and Mike, and I had this world in Victoria where I was involved actively in the riding. And that was Tommy Douglas's old seat. But we had this small time period, you probably remember, when the Clark government fell. And Tommy Douglas had lost his seat when the Clark government won by a very narrow margin to a conservative. And then the Clark government fell 9 months later, early 1980. And because I was going to university, I volunteered in 1980 to manage the NDP's federal campaign in my constituency. And we ran a marvelous campaign. On election night, they were predicting that the Tories were winning our seat again. I run the campaign on the fact because it was 9 months time period. The Conservative MP that was elected never had gotten a chance to speak in Parliament. So I said, well, if you want to send a voice to Ottawa, send the NDP voice, right? Tommy Douglas chose not to run in that election. Jim Manley was our candidate. I ran Jim's campaign, and I knew how to run campaigns. I'd learned from the Harcourt and Robinson campaigns, my own experience at UBC, and I knew you had to get every possible voter out there. And I ran, we knocked on every doorstep 3 times in my riding. Everybody that said they were going to vote for NDP, we got out to the doorstep, 100%. And the statistics are only 70% vote. So when the computers looked at it, they thought we'd lose, but I got every one of my voters to the ballot box. So we won by 1,500 votes. And right away, I developed a relationship with the people here in Esquimalt who saw me as, someone who was prepared to dedicate himself to getting us elected. And I masterminded this campaign, which I think is the proper word to use because that's the way they described it, in 1980. The only thing was, I didn't go to class for about 2 months because I was running a federal campaign for 60 days. And I used to have one of my friends who's now more in Victoria, you know, not fax, but photocopy the lecture notes, drop them off every night at the campaign office. I'd read them, see what I had to learn, and then I'd go back and continue to run this campaign. Mm-hmm. But I survived. I went and finished law school, and ran the campaign. I'm moving way ahead, but you can fill in the blanks later on. So then I sort of went and finished law school and started an article with a company here in Victoria in 1982, but always involved in the NDP. In 1983, there was a provincial election, and Frank Mitchell, who was my MLA, once I got here, I used to come here to the legislature all the time, and I would do all of Frank's background work. You know, I'd have him write his speeches, I'd have him do his pamphlets for his constituency, have him stay in touch with his voters on his writing executive. So I was building a reputation with the NDP around here, and particularly with my predecessor MLA, Frank Mitchell. And Frank, you know, he saw a good thing when he got it. He had a young guy who wasn't married or anything like that. He was quite happy to dedicate a lot of time to the NDP and work with him. So I used to come here all the time, work with Bear, everybody who was around. He used to work with, in those days as MLA, so I'd work with him. So in 83 there was an election. Frank says, well, he says, look, you did well the last one, I want you to run this one. Right? And Esquimalt in those days was a swing seat. 52 to 72 at the social credit. 72 we won by a narrow margin. 75 we lost by a narrow margin. 79 we won by a narrow margin. And so here we were in 1983 knowing we were in a very competitive seat. And we won by 8,000 votes. And I got a lot of credit for that because I ran that campaign. Simple thing. You know, I've recruited enough people, knocking everybody's door 3 times, make sure you identify who's going to vote for you, get them on to vote. So in 1983, after the election, what happened was the NDP had lost again, and a lot of the people that were part of our caucus were old. Barbara Wallace from Calgary in particular, Frank Mitchell from Esquimalt, both came to me after the 83 election because the federal seat included the Lake Calgary seat, the provincial seat, of course, was the Esquimalt seat. In 84, there was a federal election. I ran that campaign in 84 for the federal seat, and we won that. And again, you know, to increase my reputation, someone who knew how to run elections. So shortly after that federal election in 1984, Barbara Wallace, who's the MLA for Cowichan, comes to me and she says, Moe, she says, I'm not going to run in the next election. I want you to move back to Lake Cowichan. So you're from there, you grew up there, everybody knows you there. I want you to set up a law practice there, she says, and I want you to run eventually 6 for us. But you have to set up a law practice there. And I was kind of intrigued by that because, you know, it was quite an offer. It was, you know, all very quiet because she didn't want anybody else to know that she was going to run again. And then, about 2 days later, Frank Mitchell comes to me. And he says, Moe, he says, I'm not going to run again. We're going to have a new generation come forward in 1986. So he says, in the next election. And he says, I want you to quit working for downtown Victoria, set up a law practice in Esquimalt, and I'll get you elected onto Esquimalt Council. There was an election up that year, 1984. You become an alderman. He says, I'll work my butt off to make sure you get elected as a councillor. You've got all the skills. You go out there, you make a reputation for yourself in Esquimalt. And then come the next election, I'll work as hard as I can, as if I was running, to make sure that you get elected. He said, it was very important. He said to me, he says, you know, it's my responsibility as a member of this party to ensure that when I give up my seat, that it goes on to somebody who can run as fast as I can with that baton in their hand and understands the roots and the heritage and the values of the party. And you've got all those skills. I was really impressed, you know, Frank, I would say. Now, I made the decision to stay in Esquimalt. A, because I'd worked more in that end of the riding. B, the young woman who I was dating at that time, with my wife now, wanted to stay in Victoria, like Victoria. That was an important factor. And so I moved my law practice to Esquimalt, set up my own practice. did very well at it. You know, someone who didn't know anybody, just a lot of people on the NDP. You know, everybody who was in the NDP came to see me. So I had a natural constituency. No East Indians in the riding. I don't think I have more even today. No more than 6 or 8, members of our community in the constituency. And so in 1984, I came in second as an alderman. So 3 positions, so I got in. I give Frank a lot of credit. He went out, got all the NDPers to come out and vote for me. He really worked hard for me. Another NDPer came in first. I came in second. And I think, you know, it was an open secret by that time that Frank wanted me to run. Because on council they'd always ridicule me, you know, because you're just setting this up to be. You're not concerned about the community. You want to be an MLA, you know. And I always say, well, if I'm concerned about the community, you know, why not be an MLA? And so I worked really hard in those 2 years on council to create a reputation in Esquimalt that went beyond the NDP. You know, worked with broader community groups and so on. And in 1986. The election was called, and Frank, to his word, had never told anybody he was going to quit. And so he on the day the writ was dropped, announced to the party that he wasn't going to quit. And the party had no choice but to have a nomination within 2 or 3 days, which made it very easy for me to get a nomination. Right? Not that it was uncontested, it's contested. But there's no contest. You know, I won 250 votes to 50 against the guy who beat me out as an alderman. But you know, I worked hard within the party and so on, and I think people knew me well enough, and Frank, you know, gave me his blessings. It meant a lot. I will talk to Frank to this day. I still stay in touch with him, and so he made it possible for me to get my name on a lawn sign in 1986. Well, when you become an MLA, your name on a lawn sign. You know, I worked on my reputation as a counselor in this Esquimalt, fair enough. But you know, the 1986 election campaign was a very tough campaign for us. Bill Vanderzam was on a roll, and Bob Skelly was stumbling. You know, he just got nervous to speak. And even in Esquimalt, which we had won by a large margin in the previous election, people were openly putting up social credit signs where there had been NDP signs. But I knew. I'd been the campaign manager. I knew where our lawn signs went up. And there's this enormous sense of betrayal when you would go to major intersections in the riding, and you knew that they'd have NDP signs up and they had a social credit sign up. You know, and Vanderzam was making a profound impact right around the province, and we were in trouble. And I remember Frank, you know, sitting down about halfway through that campaign, looking at the numbers that were coming in, and he could see as well as I could see, and I'd run enough campaigns, you know, no, we weren't going to win. And I remember Jerry Scott from the NDP phoned me up, central headquarters. And he says, Moe, he says, you know, we just finished doing this poll. This is about 10, 12 days into the 28-day campaign. He says, we just finished doing this poll. We're in so much trouble, we're only going to win 8 seats. And you're number 9, right? Oh my God, what are we going to do now, right? And Frank, being the veteran that he was, he sat down and he wrote a letter, because we'd always kept the names on a data bank, to everybody that voted for him in 1983. Everybody who had, you know, between 83 and 86, because he knew I was going to run again, he always made sure that he wrote them regularly once. Well, I used to do the letters, you know, I said they can hear him do the letters. He'd sign them and send them off to his voters, right? And he'd always talk about his young Esquimalt councillors doing well. I always found a reason to get me in the letter. And he wrote this very heartfelt letter to about 13,000 people, about 7,000 households, saying that, you know, he was leaving, but in a neutral way. Not that it was neutral at all, but in a neutral way, he felt that he had an obligation to the voters to tell them who he thought had the best skills to represent Esquimalt, regardless of party affiliation. And he said, you know, the person for the future in this constituency is Moe Sahota. And that letter was sent out around day 12. It started at the doorsteps around day 15. And by about day 20, in the 28-day campaign, we saw a shift, a pronounced major shift. See, there was a real sense of community in the Esquimalt. It was, you know, in those days it wasn't as urban as it is now. And there were small little communities, View Royal and Colwood and Langford and Chosen and Souk and Port Renfrew, small communities where it meant a lot what the local MLA had to say. When I used to go in those days, the Sukhwant was an event when the local MLA came to town. And so Frank's letter was a defining moment. Plus, Van Zam started to stumble a bit, Skelly started to pick up, so we were also benefiting a bit from the provincial thing. But basically, it was Frank. And Frank got us through that election. I won 13,000 votes to about 10,000. And we lost Cowichan. So I obviously made the right decision in terms of where I ran. But I want to I'll end talking here, but I just want to tell you one more story. So there I was in 1986 on the night of the election, and very nervous. It's different when you're a candidate as opposed to when you're a campaign manager. But I knew one thing as a campaign manager. Trend lines are established very early. You know how TV, they can predict right away. You get 7 polls in. This is the way it's going to say. Statistics work. So I knew you look at the first 10 results that they come in, and that will tell you whether you're going to win or lose. So I went home. I have a cousin very close to me, lives in Burnaby, Suck. And I said to Suck, I said, okay, I'm like, the votes come into the central NDP office in Esquimalt. I said, I want you to phone me in the results. I don't want to, because I don't know how I'm going to do. But I can talk to you if I'm not happy, And I went home. My wife was 8.5 months pregnant with my first daughter. And I went home and I went upstairs to her bedroom and I had a bottle of Crown Royal and some 7-Up. My wife, the TV was on and the phone. Phone rings. First phone in, I lost it. Second phone in, I lost it. I was a campaign manager. I knew a trend line was established. Of the 10 polls, first 10 polls that came in, 8 of them I had lost. Well, I started to work on that bottle of Crown Royal pretty fast. And I was saying, it's like, well, I guess this is life, you win some, you lose some, it's fine. In that election, in the whole riding, I only lost 12 polls. It just happened the first 8 came in the first 10, and my instincts as a campaign manager caused me to believe that I had lost. And but sure enough, as the rest of the night went on, there were about 120 polls in the riding, and as the night went on, the margin grew and grew and grew, and I won. So with my wife, she was pregnant, and I went downstairs, and my mother was sitting there in the living room, and I said, "Ma, I'm in MLA Bonnigia. This is on my way to the victory celebration." And she said to me, she looked up to me, I can't speak English very well. She says, "Tigo pon patin kari chitani pon la jada dukit kona." Right? If there's a theme to my life, it's that, it's that message. I've picked it up all my life. That's all she said. That's all she said. And and yet it was, from an uneducated woman who had come from India, it was a very profound thing to say. So I went down to the Victory Hall, and it was here at the Esquimalt Rec Center, packed. I mean, I've been telling you, I've been through a lot of elections, but because I've built up, I think, a relationship with so many of my workers. We had worked with them in the 70, 80 campaign, 83. They all knew me. 84 campaign, they all knew me. There was a real sense of jubilation. And I walked in, and I remember, the TV cameras in my eyes. Maybe a little effect of the rye as well. I couldn't see that clearly. People picking me up on their shoulders, taking me in, and I had a speech in my pocket that I wanted to give. And the place was nuts. Really, NDP had lost the election, but we had won Esquimalt. We had won with a good margin. We had had that generational change. Frank was excited, right? And he goes up and he introduces me, and I go up to the podium to give my speech, and there's one microphone there and no podium, no place to put my notes down to give my speech. So I had to give my speech as I felt. as opposed to how I had written it the day before. So I'm up there, and this crowd is cheering. And I'm standing there, telling them to calm down, and they're cheering, and I started to look around the contours of this huge hall. Big hall, like I'm telling you, you should go see it. It's a big hall. It was 500 people there is what fills it when they're standing, right? And it is packed, right? And I started looking along the walls like this, and they're all older Indians. People who I recognized from when I was a kid that lived in Victoria. People I saw when I went to Vasaki. People who I saw at the Jormelas. People who had clearly come up from Duncan. Who had come up here from Victoria. Because we have an old community here in Victoria. And I could see, while I was waiting for the crowd to calm down, that they were seeing something that they never thought in their life that they would see. Up until then, I had never thought about being the first Indo-Canadian, when I was born here, ever to be elected to a legislature. But I could see from the look, because they weren't clapping, they were watching. And I could see, you learn over the years as a politician to read a crowd. And I could see what was in their mind. And I gave a speech that night, which I'd like to see the tape of, because I don't particularly remember it. I remember the crowd being loud. I remember the lights being in my face. I remember having, probably a good thing, having a little effect of raw in my body, because it really made me talk from the heart. I remember crying. I remember other people crying, like tears, all over that place, right? And I really don't remember. I remember my campaign manager, the lady, she was absolutely in tears, right? And you know me. You should know me. I never give a speech anyways, unless I usually just speak the way I want to feel. And I don't remember the speech, but from what I've been told about it, it was a good speech, and it had a real effect, and it was really it touched the hearts of those people that were standing along the walls.
So when you decided to run, was there any doubts in your mind that you were from regional minority?
Well, look, I knew I was Indo-Canadian, and I knew a lot of Indo-Canadians had run and not won. And I knew that during the campaign there were some people in the riding who said they'd never vote for an East Indian. But that's not typical in my riding. Be it all white, which is what it is, it was very much embracing of myself, and has been in every election I run. So I knew these things. I knew that there was kind of a high rate of failure, a total rate of failure, and that kind of bothered me, because sometimes I thought, in the quiet of a ballot box, you never really know. And the result clearly restored faith in the people that I now know in my riding as well as I know them, and there was never an issue in their mind. They base it on skill and capabilities. I can see that. I've been asked that question 100 times in interviews over the years, and I've never really known how to answer it. Like I think, I look back at it now, and I realize it was a moment in history, and I had the privilege of being the first one, first MLA, first cabinet minister, so on. I know it was a moment in history, and I know, I remember, I look back at it now, and it means far more to me now than it did then. I don't think I really appreciated it then. And my feeling is that it'll mean far more to me when I leave. Because I think sometimes you take for granted in life those things that you've accomplished. You don't really sort of see yourself as someone who broke barriers. But I think that when you get older and you've left this game, and when you talk to your kids, then I think there's a moment of pride in it. But right now, I can't. Let me see. I can't say that. I don't know what I meant, but I know this. I know that as time's gone on, it's meant a lot to a lot of other people. You know, like like today, just even today, and it happens every day in here. The kids, you know, the school groups come to watch the legislature, and every Indo-Canadian kid sits there, and I know they're looking at me. Like, I know that. They all recognize me. You know, if I wave, they all wave, right? I know they kind of told a little white lie to their friends, saying, well, I know Moe. Because every one of them, whenever I see them walking through in the tour, I always make a point to talk to them, and you can see the look of relief on their face, because they kind of, oh, I know Moe, and, you know, they also know the truth, but I pretend I don't know the truth, and I've known them all my life. I look at my mail, and I see the letters that I get. I go to functions, and people come up to me and say things, and I can see that it's a source of pride. You know, it's funny, you know, like in a funny sort of way, somehow something happened that was right, because, like, I don't think, and maybe it's sort of the delusions of a politician. You always like to think you're popular, but I don't think my popularity in the Indo-Canadian community has wavered. Like, I've always got the sense that for some reason I get treated a little bit differently than everybody else. You know, usually they can always find a reason not to like a politician. You know, and always there's jealousies in our community. I use the word PR early on, right? Everywhere I go, I get a lot of PR from our community. Now, I know, I've been in politics long enough, I know the difference between people saying, oh, you know, MLA on that, or, you know, minister on that, right? And sort of pretending that they're interested in you, versus something that's heartfelt. And I consider myself a very, very fortunate guy, because it comes across to me as being very sincere. People are genuinely proud of me. And they'll tolerate a lot with me. You know, they'll stand behind me. They'll defend me. If you don't believe in somebody, that won't happen. I have no fear with the Indo-Canadian community that someone is going to say, oh, you know, he's no good. When I go to Vancouver and I have to go somewhere to an Indo-Canadian event, I always take my daughter. I always want to take my daughter. I can't always take her. I always want to, because I want her to see how people treat me. Because I think it means a lot more for her to observe it than it does to me. And I want her to have some sense of pride in her father. So again, when you say that, you know, what does it mean to me? I don't know what it means to me. But I know I want my daughter to feel good about who I am. Right? And so I think it shows itself in different ways. And I don't think it shows itself in the footage of that night. So I don't remember any of them. Someone must have come up to me and said something, but it was such a blur of a night. It was a long night. Those are just the things that you remember now about it. But like I said earlier on, I imagine it meant a lot to them, and I would imagine that one day it'll mean a lot to me.
So what kind of support did you get from your family and the community?
Well, in that election,
your political life.
Generally. Okay. Well, first of all, just in the UBC days, without the support of people in our community, I wouldn't have gotten elected. I mean, they were just great fellows. They were good friends, and now, they offered me all sorts of support.
Sorry about you guys.
Yeah.
You wanted to see Cindy. Is today 5:30 or something? Unless you're busy.
Actually, we are doing till 6, and then I have to catch a flight. So,
okay, are you coming back home?
yes.
But
Whenever she is available.
okay. Sorry about you guys.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So, so those guys supported me a lot at UBC days. And then, I guess there's a lot of things. I mean, first of all, the community's always, from the first election on, 1986, financially, I've always gotten good support from the community. People come out to any fundraisers. Now a lot easier than when I first ran, because people had seen people run and not win. But I've always had good financial support. I've always had good support in terms of picking up the phone and talking to people in the community if I want an idea or what they think about certain government policies. I've always had good participation from the community in terms of appointments. I often phone up people and say, look, we're looking at this appointment. What do you think of that? And I think, I've taken the view that, I'm not just the MLA from Esquimalt. I'm an MLA that represents the community, and particularly when I was the only one, they shared my successes and felt for me when I went through rough times. And there's a bond there, and I feel that bond right across the country. I remember the constitutional talks. When I was Minister responsible for Constitutional Affairs, we were traveling right across the country doing the constitutional negotiations. And people of Indian heritage would stop me in Toronto or in Montreal or in Halifax or St. John. And I'd get a very, very warm reaction from them, because they felt a point of pride in seeing someone of Indian heritage in the middle of those very heated and tough constitutional negotiations. But they felt that they had a voice. And I've always felt, therefore, that I have to give them that voice, I have to make them feel proud of the kind of representation that I can provide to them, much in the same way as I would for a constituent. So although I get no votes from the Indo-Canadian community, I get everything else a politician would want.
And what kind of expectations after you get elected? What kind of expectations or demand you had from the Indo-Canadian community?
Well, when I first got elected, the community made no expectations or demands on me. I think there were, sort of a watch and see attitude. How does this guy do? And hopefully he'll do well, because there's a lot at stake in terms of reputation of the community if someone gets in initially and doesn't do well. And then I think, Glenn and myself and Dan Miller and Dale Lovick were so aggressive in opposition with the Van der Zand government. I could see that over time the community started to say, hey, this is great. He's one of our guys. Behaves like a true jock. He's out there, going after the community. After the government. And I could see that as time went on, the expectations, I don't think really increased, but I think the point of pride did. I don't think they've ever can say the community has these expectations, but I can always see that there's a point of pride. Certainly when I was sworn in a cabinet in 1991, becoming the first Indo-Canadian ever to be in a cabinet, I think that was another moment of pride. I remember the Vancouver Sun printed a picture of myself going up and shaking hands with Mike Harcourt as I was sworn in. And I got a lot of mail from the Indo-Canadian community saying, right across the country, saying what that, because they must have run the picture across the country, saying what that picture meant to them. But it wasn't expectations. Again, it was point of pride. As you know, any portfolio I go into, I always go into where the government's in trouble. I have to go in and solve the problem. And I like doing that, And I think, every time I've gone into a portfolio, I think there's always been a little hesitation to see, well, gee, I hope he does well here. And I like to think that I've done well in any portfolio I've had the privilege to serve. And generally speaking, the community, then, you get this pride shows up again. Expectations, it's not as, people don't pick up the phone and say to me, my brother needs a job, can you do something about it? Those kinds of expectations aren't there. They know when they have a broader community issue, they can come and see me, and I'll go to bat for them. I'll never say no. Whether it was $1 million for the Gurdwara and on Ross Street or in Surrey, whether it was the Punjabi in the schools, whether it was this taxi dispute, I go on with a list. I think any time that communities come to me, they know that I always make a sincere effort to try to attend to their wishes. And I think, that's the kind of relationship I tried to foster. And I think that's worked well for everybody. So no one has they'll say things. They'll say, Moe, if you get involved, this will happen. And I would say, look, there isn't any guarantee except the guarantee I'll try my best. And I think people have always come to respect that. I think, in a funny sort of way, because my Punjabi isn't very good, and people see me struggling with my Punjabi at times when I'm standing in front of a Gurdwara. I don't know if you ever watched me in that setting, but giving a speech, they can see that I'm trying my best. But I think because they know that I'm not particularly fluent, I think they tend to listen a lot more carefully because you're always wanting to hear what the guy's going to say and hopefully he doesn't screw up. And I think in a funny sort of way, it makes it easier for me. It's an advantage because people listen to what you're saying because they're watching you struggle. They feel for you when you're up there. So I think that's always helped me. But I try to communicate with the community from time to time, in terms of the newspapers and the press. But I don't live in Vancouver, so I can't and won't go to every function. You get invited to everything. And I think if I lived in Vancouver, I think the expectation should be totally different. People know that you're just down the street, so why is it that you can't come? And I think if you live in Vancouver, I think people would be more inclined to show up at your doorstep asking you to do something for them that you really can't do. Whereas living in Victoria and representing Victoria area seat, I think that helps me sort of keep some distance, which is always a good thing. Right?
And how do you said that you feel that you are representing the community as well as your constituents. How do you balance that? Are there any demands from your constituents which say that you're giving too much attention to the Indo-Canadians?
No, like my constituents know that they get the first attention. And I have the good fortune of representing a seat here in Victoria. So I can be, like I was today, I can be in my constituency all day long today and everybody will see me there, that I come across. And because I live there, the kids go to school there, and because it's right here in Victoria, you can see your constituents on a regular basis. Unlike most MLAs, like here at the legislature, I'll have my constituents come and see me every day. Well, if you're from Comox or the Kootenays, you can't do that. I have them coming in all the time, right? And so they see a lot of me. So if one weekend I'm in Vancouver doing something, no one really notices. I've never, ever, ever received any criticism from the constituency saying, why are you there and why are you not at home? In fact, I think the constituency understands my background, understands that I also have to play that role, and more importantly, supports me in that. I got more votes than any other NDP candidate in the last election. If that was a problem, it'd show up at the ballot box.
So how does the politics of time affect you? For example, like if it was 1960 and you were running at that time instead of 1986, would that make a difference?
Oh, yeah. I think attitudes have changed. I think people regrettably hold politicians in scorn and disrespect, whereas back in the 60s there was far more respect for politicians. Now, obviously the person on the other side of the fence will say, well, respect is something you earn. But it's a general attitude, all politicians are corrupt, but they all like their own individual politician, It's a general attitude towards politics. I think, but more importantly, in the 60s, and still today in my mind, people got involved then in politics because they thought they could make a difference. Why am I here? Because I believe that I can make a difference. I believe that government is something, it's an instrument that you can use to shape the economic and social fabric of society, change society for the better for people, maintain those ideals of people like Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Robert Kennedy. That government is a powerful force in the lives of people that can be worked through the state to improve the quality of their lives. Others today, and the dominant view today, is that government is something that gets in the way. If only we had less government, if only government wasn't there, if we only had fewer politicians. So when I say disrespect, I mean it in that context. People have lost sight of what it is that government can do in a positive way to improve the quality of life of people. To me, politics is not particularly difficult if you think of your children. It's not ideological. If you just think of the kind of environment you want your children to live in, the kind of education system you want them to have access to, the kind of economy you want them to be successful in, the kind of healthcare system you want them to have access to, then it's pretty easy to make the decisions that have to be made. Now, leadership requires going forward and making decisions. And sometimes, if I can criticize politicians, some people think they're reluctant to make decisions. You have to take risks. Every portfolio I've been in, It's always generated a lot of news and noise because I'll go out, I'll state a vision, and I'll go out and try to fulfill it. But the vision isn't predicated on a great sense of ideology, except you think about your kids and you think about what kind of world you want them to inherit, and you go out and you try to build it for them. So I think, I haven't lost any of the idealism of the 60s in terms of government. I think society has, and I think that's tragic.
And as an Indo-Canadian, if you had won in 1960, would you have won at that time?
Has society changed from that perspective?
Yeah.
Well, I like to think I would have won. I like to think that people would have made decisions on the basis of merit and not on the basis of color. I believe that society at that time was sufficiently tolerant to be able to do it. I just think that for some reason no one was at the right place at the right time. And it just turned out that in October of 1986, I happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I don't think there would have been much difference, given the right dynamics in 1966.
Okay. Was there any effort from your party, NDP, to encourage visible minorities to seek nominations to get?
Oh yeah, remember we have this beautiful history as a party. I mean, remember in the 1948 election in Mission, we had an Indo-Canadian run, and almost succeeded in having that person secure the seat. So the NDP's desire to have Indo-Canadians succeed in public office goes back. Woodgill ran 79, I think it was, and didn't succeed. But again, it was within our political party. So I think that the party's always had that desire. She saw the benefit of it.
You answered this question before a little bit. Was the support from the Indo-Canadian community
The same in 1991 and 1996 election. In 1986, it was only slightly less because people didn't know me, but only slightly. Around Vancouver it was fine. Lower Mainland, it was like in the interior of Williams Lake, Cornell, stuff, but people didn't know me that well, and so that's where the difference was between 86 and 91 and 96. But apart from that, no, I've always had really good support. Same people who donated my campaign in 1986. Donated in 1996. Some of them didn't like some of the policies I brought in, but it was felt important that they see me as someone who will fight for them.
And how big factor was the support from the Indo-Canadian community in your election first time?
Well, not much a factor in the sense that I had 5 or 6 families, as I said, from the Indo-Canadian community. From that perspective, it wasn't much of a factor. From a financial point of view, and elections cost money. As I said earlier on, it was a factor. And a big one at that, because we certainly didn't have any trouble raising cash for the campaigns.
Has your election changed your relationship with the Indo-Canadian community? If you look back, has your relationship changed with the Indo-Canadian community before you got elected and after? What kind of change?
Well, clearly it changed. I mean, they didn't know me in '86. I like to think they all know me now. I think that the sense of expectation and pride changed. So, it's changed to answer the question, but in the ways that I already described it. My own feeling is, it's a funny thing, I feel today I have more support from the community than I did at any other previous time. Now, I don't know why that is, but as a politician, you develop an elbow. I can see that. When I walk through Main Street, I can't shop. And And 3 years ago, I could. You know, people would come up and talk. It's not that they ignored me. Is that at least you could still make your way through. Now I find it impossible. I took my daughter there to buy. She needed a langa for some of her dance thing. I couldn't get into the store. People kept on calling me up. Kids wanting autographs, people wanting pictures, others just wanting to talk, others wanted to thank me for something that we had done as a government. It's changed. I don't know why.
So is there your relationship change from your point of view, your personal? You start participating more in the community after being elected before, or vice versa?
Well, obviously I participate more because of the reality of being an MLA. But, you know, but only in that sense. I mean, see, I don't think I've changed in anything. But I think the way the world looks at you changes.
Because I'm asking this question, that there is a study on ethnic candidates, and that according to that study, the link weakens after ethnic minority candidate get elected. So is that happening in your case?
No, well, first of all, remember, I got elected in a constituency that has virtually no visible minorities. Literally virtually no visible minorities. So there's no link in that sense, right? Secondly, as I said earlier on, I don't know what it is, and I don't know why it is. I honestly don't know. But I can see that I get treated a little bit differently. There is sort of, I see as sort of, and again, I'm not trying to be foolishly, you know, politicians can delude themselves and think they're very popular. I don't think I'm doing that. There's a bond there. It's a different kind of a bond, you know? Like, I notice it. And I don't know why it's there. I just, I'm very, very, I think, you know, like, I'm very proud of who I am. Very proud of my ethnic background. Very proud of my culture. Very proud of my religion. And I show it. And I tell people that. And I think, you know, if they see me being proud of who I am, it makes them realize that they should be proud of who they are. Or maybe because I spent so much time, you know, delivering that kind of a message, maybe people then end up reacting to you in a different way. I don't know what it is, but I don't think the link is diminished, and maybe I just defy the studies. It's a good thing.
So what kind of things you have done for the Indo-Canadian community? You mentioned a few, Punjabi, $1 million to Gurdwara.
Well, remember I brought in the changes to the Human Rights Code, right, to deal with discrimination, and also deal with discrimination in the press, the Doug Collins kind of cases. So I brought in some fundamental changes to the Human Rights Code. I then followed that by giving grants to the to the Gurdwaras. Follow that by bringing in a multicultural policy that ordered every ministry and every crown corporation to have to give a report on what it's doing in terms of hiring practices. It goes to cabinet for approval, and if they don't meet the targets, then they have to keep on moving. I brought in Punjabi in the schools, probably the thing that I'm the most proud of, right? And then, you know, like I brought in the, like there's the other things that I think that stick out in people's minds, like when the community was under attack for turbans in the RCMP, right? I mean, they didn't, you know, I took no hesitation to argue with those people publicly who seem to be defending the community. We've, as a government, brought that in, right, in terms of policy for the police officers with no controversy within our political party. Farm workers, you know, didn't have protection when I first came in as Minister of Labour. They weren't covered under the WCB. You know, I brought in that policy, very proud of it, because they're the most vulnerable in society. And I ended up making those changes under the provisions of under the provisions of the Workers' Compensation Act. I have appointed literally dozens, if not hundreds, of Indo-Canadians to different boards that I have, appointed with a lot of pride, and I try to make people that are capable, right? Herb Dollywall to the board of BC Hydro. I appointed Jamil Gill. Not only was I there in cabinet, we appointed him as a judge, but then I put him in charge of the Royal Commission on the Workers' Compensation Board. Whenever I see that there's an opportunity for our people to show their skills, and I try to put in people who've got skills so that there's no failure, you know, I've done that for them. So and the list goes on and on. But those are just things that, and when there's a moment when the community feels let down, I try to speak up for them. The taxi dispute last month, there was a lot of feedback saying, where are the politicians? Well, then I stepped in and represented them. When we brought forward the exemption for bicycle helmets, Sikhs didn't have to wear a bicycle helmet. So the list goes on. I'm pretty proud. There's no way nobody else can match that kind of record. Now, why is that record? That record isn't there because of Moe Sahota. Obviously, I'll speak to that record, right? And I'm very proud of that record. But it goes back to your roots. If you understand who you are, if you understand the kinds of things that would make your community proud, it's not particularly difficult then to identify the things that are important to them to deliver for them. And I think again, if you keep that perspective, you'll do fine.
1986, you got elected first time, and that is the time when there was a lot of politics, lots of division in Indo-Canadian community regarding to the Punjab situation. In any way that situation affected you, or how did you deal with?
It's a funny thing, again, I had both sides come to me all the time saying, look, you stay out of this, we'll handle it, right? You're different. You have to look after things in Victoria. You're the MLA. Everybody, supports you. Those are the kinds of comments I would get. So I stayed right out of it. That was the advice that I got from people over and over again. I didn't feel really real need to get involved in it. When I went to Punjab, and again, I went as a cabinet minister in 1991, I met with representatives of the government. I told them what I thought about these issues. But I didn't broadcast them. I didn't think it was necessary to do that. Make my case to people, on that issue in private. But I've never got drawn into that issue in the way that others have. And there was every pressure on me from the community not to do it. Like I had people on both sides of that fence come to me within minutes of each other one day and say, Mo, you should stay out of this because, let us handle this one. You're different. That's always a word. You're different. You don't need to get involved. It's funny kind of situation.
What is important to you, BC, Canada, like in this society? What is the most important thing for you?
Well, I think the answer is sort of obvious because it picks up on the theme, and then I'll give you some policies as well. First and foremost, you don't forget where you came from. Right? You be proud. And I preach this to our community over and over again. Be proud of who you are, be proud of your culture, your values, and your traditions. Very, very important because it defines you as a human being. From a policy point of view, I think the most difficult issues for society today that I don't think get talked about often enough. Again, I think the first one's obvious. I have a real passion towards protecting the integrity of our environment. Right? And what do? I spend a lot of my time now because I'm taking this break from cabinet, working with environmental technology companies to try to assist them get their foothold into India. Because you can't go to Punjab and drink water out of a tap anymore. It's nuts. I think the way in which that we are damaging the shell of the earth is something that I never would have thought much about. But ever since I've been in the environment portfolio, that had a real profound impact on me. We're just taking the earth for granted, and we shouldn't be. I think that secondly, from a social point of view, the future of our healthcare system. The population is getting older. It's going to make more demands on healthcare. It's going to be very, very hard for government to be able to maintain a high-quality system with all the pressures of deficits and debts. And I think that's the biggest public policy challenge for government in the years ahead is in that regard.
Anything specific to Indo-Canadian community? What is the most important thing for you for the Indo-Canadian community at this time?
As I said, this never forget where you came from. Never forget who you are. Take pride in what you are. Because I see that when you talk about studies that shows the weakening of the link. I remember one day, I'll never forget this. He never remembers these things. I don't know why I always remember them, but Dave Brett and I one day were driving down 49th Oak, it's Oak Avenue, right? And we got to Oak and 41st. And in those days, it used to be an old Jewish home, care, elderly care, at the corner of Oak and 41st. I don't know if it's still there or not. And we pulled over for a second. Sure. So I'll go visit my mother. His mother was staying there. I went there, visited his mother, I stayed in the car, he comes back, I was start talking. And he says, he says, it's funny what's happening to your spirit. He says, they always, of course, Dave always talks political terms. I always used to vote NDP, but he says, he still speaks to his mother in Hebrew. He says, he says, you see this with other ethnic communities, he says, Moe, it's going to happen to yours one day too. They lose their language, they lose their culture. These things, start, they begin to mix so much into society, everything becomes diluted. And he says, it'll happen to yours as well, just like it's happened to the Italians and the Jewish community. And I remember thinking to myself, no, it won't. No, it won't. I don't know how I got into that story after your question, but...
Or why?
Huh? It's too important. It's not going to happen. If I'm around in government to try to do anything that we can to preserve it, then I'm going to do my best. The only thing I can do as a father to my children, right? I'm going to try to do my best to do it. If I can do something as someone who people will, if I'm on a stage talking, people are forced to listen because I'm up there, I'm going to do my best to deliver that kind of message. I don't know, this has been the theme of what we talked about all day, but the roots run deep in me.
So what do you most like about your job?
People. I love meeting people. Love talking to people. So every day I do a 2 or 3 hour interview, but I like doing it. I love talking to people about what's happening to them. Here I am, the oldest member of this legislature, the longest serving member here in Victoria, right? And guy who enjoys the largest majority of anybody in my political party. And what do I do every Tuesday night? I go door to door in my constituency, right? Now, why do I do that? Because I love interacting with people. I love talking to my own people, seeing what's going on in their minds, what they're thinking, what they want government to do, what their expectations are, why they're angry, why they're happy, All I go around, I love meeting people. You get a kick out of it. And that's the best part of politics, the people you meet.
What kind of relationship you have with other members of your party, your caucus, non-visible minority members?
Great. Fantastic. I tell you, I'm a lucky guy. Usually, probably if I stayed out there, I would have gotten enjoyed going, but hey, listen, it's great. I know these people. I've known them for a long time. Whether it was Mike Harcourt or Glenn Clark, I never hesitate to walk in their office, never hesitate, I don't care what they're doing, sit down, tell them what I think, right? And it's reciprocated. They never hesitate to open the door when it's me and say, hey, come on in, right? What do you think? Let's talk about it, let's kick the tires together. I have a remarkable relationship with the cabinet and our caucus. I enjoy working with them, they enjoy me. They know I've got an opinion on everything. And they know that I'll walk in there and tell them exactly how to run their portfolio and give them some ideas. And I like to think that I give them enough good ideas that they value their relationship. The hardest thing in politics is to sometimes have that kind of relationship because it's an egotistical business. People can stab you in the back. I've seen that happen. But I have to say, I enjoy remarkable support from members of our government, and I've and I think the reason for that is that the friendships have been lifelong. Dan Miller, 1983, he first met on provincial council. Lois Boone, 83, Clark, 79, Harcourt, 79. We've known the ones around Dale Lovick, 79. Those of us who worked together have known each other for a long time, and so it transcends anything. It's just deep-rooted friendships, and it's great. I'm in here every day cracking jokes with them, and they're here every day telling me how much they miss the fact that I'm not in cabinet. I tell them they're full of shit.
Okay. Did you ever feel fear of being stereotyped as an ethnic politician while you're raising issues regarding the immigrant community?
No. I never. Remember, my constituency base prevents that. I represent a non-ethnic riding, right? So pretty hard to stereotype me, and it's not as if the only issues that are raised are ones that are important to the community. You know, exclusivity in terms of raising issues will generate stereotyping. And the approach I've taken is I talk about issues all the time. And so the public sees me talking about a broad range of issues. So it's very easy to avoid being stereotyped. I mean, they'll hear me one day on environment, one day on fish, one day on forest, one day on, you know, job creation, the next day on healthcare, and the next day on why our CMP should be allowed to wear turbans. So it really prevents stereotyping, because I think I've had the good luck of being in so many different portfolios, people seeing so many different facets of my personality, that it's very hard to get stereotyped. If I get stereotyped for anything, it's as a ideological left-wing NDP, you know, elected official. That's how I get stereotyped, but I don't get stereotyped because I'm Indo-Canadian.
Are there any, like, there are some studies which say, according to them, is that priority discipline sometimes hinders people from ethnic minority to raise their own issues?
Not for me, man. It's the other way around, right? I mean, you know, look, I mean, let's, you know, I like to, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm not trying to overstate the case, right? But, you know, like, over the years, you make friends. You start to have a lot of influence within the party. And so you become the party. And so your opinions can become opinions of the party. Now, it takes time to get that kind of respect and develop that kind of friendship. So, you know, for me, you know, there's no handicap. You know, I'm in there with everybody else. You know, I'm always in the center of either the storm or the decision that's to be made. And because I'm right there in the center, I impact the thinking at that level. And the party doesn't look to me to avoid those issues. They ask me to raise those issues, to give them the benefit of some insight around those issues. And if I feel the issues are strong, they know damn well I'm going to go out there and talk about them anyways. So they might as well figure out how we're going to work a box around it, right? So I think it's a function of personality. I don't know what the studies, you know, sure there can be all these kind of studies on party discipline. You are the party. And the party is very, very flexible. And when I speak for the party. And I've never detected any hesitancy. Sometimes I've detected some fear because they don't know what I'm going to say next. But they've always come back and say, well, just hang on. Before you say it, explain it to us. But I have never had Mike or Glenn ever say to me, look, Mo, don't say that or don't go in that direction. Yeah, nothing but support. But I think it's because, you know, we support each other, we develop friendships, we're candid with one another, you know, and you earn respect with one another. So, it might be a problem for other guys, but it ain't a problem for me.
You discussed block voting at UBC.
Yeah.
And now lots of people are saying that, you know, ethnic minorities are abusing the system, nomination meeting by backing block voting. What are your views on that?
Well, first of all, anything wrong with being involved politically, and I don't think that's a danger in our political system. But I do think this. I'll tell you what bothers me is moving from one party to another. You don't forget where you came from. And I think that the one thing that I, you know, at times very fearful of is the community will forget the historical relationship between it and the NDP. You know, and we talked about that from the time that I was first interested in politics to Punjabi in the schools, from the right to vote to Punjabi in the schools. I mean, this government and this party has shown itself as being on side with this community over and over and over again. And you know, you don't walk away from the house that loves you, right? Now it's not, you know, it's not that we're perfect as a government, but you know, politics is a little bit like marriage. You don't always agree with everything you do, but you stick it out. Well, why is that? Because generally speaking, this government will always come down in support of our community, even when it means taking some political risks to do it. But that's always been the history, whether it was the right to vote or to say that Sikhs are exempt from the bicycle helmet bylaw, right? We've always prepared to take some of the risks that go along with taking those positions. And so that's my biggest fear, is the next generation forgets. They ought not to forget. I saw what life was like in the 50s and the 60s particularly. And you know, like I say, it's important to me to pass that value on to my children. So I don't mind them block voting, but do it only at NDP nominations.
Do you have any opinion that why people do that? Why people are moving from NDP?
Well, fortunately, they're not provincially. I mean, we were fearful of that going in the last election, but we noticed that in community after community, the Indo-Canadian community, from if you did a proper analysis of the Indo-Canadian community, gave the NDP its victory in the last election. You look at the seats where the NDP community, if they had voted the other way, would have clearly have cost the NDP the election. We won 3 seats in Surrey. The Indo-Canadian community came through. Quesnel, the Indo-Canadian community came through. Williams Lake came through. Kamloops, it came through. These are all seats with swings. Campbell River, you know. These are all seats where the government could have lost or won. But we identified 7 or 8 seats. I went around the province, spent more time with the Indo-Canadian community in the last election than I did in my own riding. But the Indo-Canadian community delivered big for the NDP in the last election. Why? Because I think they saw that people, that our team, myself, Ujjwal and Harry, were on their side. We're delivering for them. They had faith in us. You could never betray that faith. You have to continually work at it. But I don't think that's happening at the provincial level. It's clearly happened at the federal level. I guess that's helped her out. But it hasn't happened at the provincial level. That's where my focus has been. And I'll tell you, to the day I die, probably the last thing I'll ever say, the last words I'll ever utter, is you don't forget where you came from. And I mean that in a cultural way, and I also mean that in a political way.
All of us have some turning points in life.
Yeah.
If you look back, are there any turning points in your life that really make a difference in your life?
You know, I think it was in 1965 when I got that, I wrote that exam. I went to St. George's. It gave me a different life experience than I would have had if I stayed in Lake Calhoun. I think that was probably it. I think later on, I think when we gave birth to, my wife gave birth to our daughter, first child, you know, it tends to make you reflect on things. And I would say that changed my thinking a lot. Made you really realize what your purpose really is.
Have you encountered any failures in your political life?
Politically, no.
For your life?
Not really. You know, my attitude, look, I mean, I've left cabinet once because I made a big mistake. I deserved to leave cabinet. The other time I just got mad at something like that. But I don't consider that to be fair. The only, you know, my attitude basically is that the world's my oyster. And I'm having a great time. I really am, you know. Like I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing. I have some of the best friends in the world. I'm traveling. Put it this way, I was 31 when I was elected. And I'm now 43 years of age, right? At my age, most people don't get the kind of experiences that I've had. I'm a very, very lucky guy. I owe a lot to the people who gave me this chance, people in my constituency. You know, I owe a lot to them. Because they've given me a life experience that most people never get to have. And I'm a very wealthy person because of that. And when you look at it that way, you know, it's pretty hard not to feel good all the time. And that's exactly the way I feel. I'm always upbeat. I always feel good. No, I honestly can't say failure. Can't say that. I'm just very lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Very, very lucky.
Tell me the names of people who have influenced you in politics.
Well, Dave Barrett, obviously. Spent a lot of time with Dave and learned a lot from Dave, number one. Number two, it'd be surprised, shock you when I say the name Joe Clark. But I spent time with Joe on the constitutional negotiations. And I learned a lot from working with Joe. A lot of respect for him. I think he's one of the most underrated politicians in Canada. So I would say those two probably had the the greatest experience. The third was Frank Mitchell, my predecessor, a guy most people haven't even heard of. But I learned a lot in terms of how you look after people that put you here, and that's very, very important. So I would say those three.
And in what ways was they influenced you? Any kind of, give me an example of.
Barrett, I think, inspired me from an ideological and philosophical point of view. From a practical point of view, he persuaded me of the value of great oratorical skills, the ability to go up there and be able to speak and motivate a crowd. And I went speech after speech and watched Barrett. I'll never be as good as he is, never. But I imitate a lot of what he does. I think I don't know how many of you ever watched me speak, but I never work off notes. I know what I'm going to say. I go up there and say it. I'm just captivated by the way Barrett did, and I learned a lot from him. Clark, from a purely negotiation and administrative point of view, how it is you bring together diverse groups in the practical sense, in the heat of sitting in a room and trying to work around issues. And I took a lot of what I learned from Clark around negotiations and used it to my advantage when I was a private minister and when I was a labor minister. I used a lot of that in that way. And then Frank, in the context of you don't forget where you came from. Frank, the loyalty you show back to people that vote for you, the way you treat them like gold, the way you look after their concerns, your concerns, you take them home with you, you work for them, you work for their interests, succeed or fail, doesn't matter. They've got to see you going to bat for them. And I've taken that same approach within the Canadian community. So I think, all three of them brought out different kind of aspects of my personality.
And who has influenced you from your family most?
My wife has a lot. A remarkable person in terms of perseverance and tenacity, and just in terms of just staying with matters. My mom, in terms of values and compassion for people.
When you started in politics, you had certain aims and desires. Have you achieved those aims at this point?
No, I would have quit. That was the case. Oh no, the work isn't done, but the work is nearing an end. I think that, I'm clearly going to run again, but I doubt if I'll run after that. I think if you haven't made your mark in politics after 2 or 3 attempts at it, then you're never going to make it. And I believe, I could quit today and I could leave a remarkable legacy behind. I've created over 200 parks, right? I brought in a labor code that gave remarkable stability to labor relations in British Columbia, introduced Punjabi in the schools, brought in farm workers covered under the Workers' Compensation Board, brought forward to change the way that we manage our forests, the new forest practices code, brought in the initial piece of legislation that was required to save our salmon resources in British Columbia, negotiated a constitutional outcome, which I still think was very good. I think I could leave today and leave and talk about a legacy, not only in a provincial way, but also in terms of my constituency and also to the Indo-Canadian community. So I find that I'm at that position now where I don't have much to prove to anybody, but I can do a lot because I think I've earned a lot of respect with the people that I work with. If I go into Glenn's office today and say, hey Glenn, I got an idea in terms of what I think we should do for the Indo-Canadian community, I know he'll listen, I know he'll take it very seriously, and I know that if we both agree it's something that we should do, it'll get done. And so I'm in a position where I can continue to make a difference. I will leave politics when either I just feel that I can't make a difference anymore, or when I believe that as a human being, enough's enough in terms of the work that you have to do. You see that when I say enough is enough, you understand politics takes an enormous toll on people. You have to work 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. Politics comes first, family comes second. That's not consistent with my outlook on life. I'm the one minister that's known around here who brings his kids to the legislature all the time. They're in my office when I'm having meetings, right? I leave at 5. I show up at 9 only after I drop off at school. every other weekend, I refuse to do, no matter what's going on, refuse to do anything except spend time with my kids and my wife. But even then, it's tough in politics because the demands on you as a human being are enormous. And there are days when physically I get tired. Like I just get, and I'm young. But I see what this does physically to people, and the way you age and the way you develop disease, and it's a very, very stressful, demanding job. And so, some days I say I should listen to my body, and I am actually. That's why I'm taking a break right now. Quite frankly, it's one of the biggest reasons. But then the fire is still there. I take a break, and then I go to the legislature and I hear somebody sort of criticize the government, and I want to get up and have my say, And so the fire is still there. As long as the fire is there, as long as I can believe I can make a difference. I sat down in this very room over at that table with the Premier on Wednesday morning for breakfast. And I said, look, I'm going to stay with this as long as I believe I can make a difference.
And in what ways your culture, religion, heritage help you to stay in politics or do things?
Well, look, culture, heritage give me focus. Values have given me a foundation. Language has given me a tradition that I want to speak about. I am who I am, and I am a Punjabi Sikh, and I'm proud of that. And I feel privileged that I've had the opportunity to be able to represent that community in a unique way here in British Columbia. It gives me a sense of satisfaction. So without the benefit of that heritage, you don't have a beacon. You have no way to guide yourself. You don't have a compass. And it's given me a sense of identity and strength.
And what are your long-term plans, future plans? Like you are going to run again?
Oh, I'll run again. But look, like I can't figure out how best to put this, but my kids mean everything to me. I mean, I want to be known as someone who raised, with my wife, 2 gifted children who could contribute back to society in a meaningful and profound way. I will give them everything that I possibly can to help them succeed. And I will make whatever sacrifices I have for them. And I mean that. And I'll do that because I will want to be known for what I passed on to them, more so than what I left as a political legacy. Right? It's very, very important to me. Very, very important to me. It's everything.
You want to say anything which I missed? I didn't ask.
No, I was a little bit shorter since we got here because I felt some pressure for time. But no, I'll let you figure out how you're going to work it all into a chapter.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, okay.